Hello once again, myself Dr. Harshini, Associate Professor at JBIT. This is 20th video on strategic management, and the few concepts which were left in previous two videos will be covered here under the module strategic control. As you can see in the contents, the different topics that we covered, and I'll be concentrating on exerting strategic control also in this video. Well, strategic control is defined as finding different methods to implement strategic plan. It's required. It's unique to handle and intent to handle the unknown and track the strategic implementation and its results. It is primarily concerned with finding and assessing adopting different factors, including internal and external factors. The primary objective of strategic control is to ensure that organization has an effective balance and alignment with its internal and external environment. It's very important when it comes to moving forward towards achieving strategies and goals. After a strategy is confirmed, it's to be implemented over a long time to guide the organization and adopt the internal and external environment. These strategies are usually based on management's assumptions about different events that have not yet taken place. So they are futuristic or forward-looking in nature. The strategic control is concerned primarily with tracking and helps in operating managers to implement strategy at all levels. This system helps to guide, monitor, and execute program in meeting the annual objectives of the organization. So regarding types of strategic control, premise control usually focus on certain assumptions about force and factors which affect the organization. These factors include internal factors like employees, profitability, product, and external factors like consumers, shareholders, competition, nature. So some of these forces are very sharp, and the deviating in them affects the strategy greatly. So therefore, premise control is necessary to identify and keep track of all these changes to be assessed. The objective is to assess their impact on strategy and its implementation in the organization. So there should be many factors like changing governing policies, rising or decreasing market competition, changes due to killer virus in market, or natural or unseen calamities. Therefore, premise control is used to continually test all these assumptions and determine if they're valid or they need to modify. This helps the strategy formers to implement necessary and corrective actions at the right time rather than just being with a particular strategy for a long time. So usually the corporate planning department's job is to exert premise control and identify primary assumptions by regularly checking their validity. So implementation control includes when the strategy is chosen, it has to be implemented, and that's a prerequisite to have an opinion to have an optimum number of programs, plans, and projects. The entire purpose of implementation control is to confirm and ascertain that these programs and projects help organization achieve its goal. So if it is seen that the commitment of resource has a predefined plan or a program is not getting as many results as expected, then a matching revision should be done. Therefore, implementation control is nothing but strategic rethinking to avoid different ways. So one way of implementing control is to identify and monitor different points like confirming new product marketing success after the pre-test phase. This also includes checking feasibility of diversification program after initial attempts at searching technological associations. So in the first scenario, the company should evaluate and analyze if the new product launch will be benefit or be dropped forever for another program. In the second scenario, implementation control is used to confirm if the diversification move will be successful or not. Milestone review is another tool for implementation control. This involves critical review of essential points in strategic implement. This is very similar to identification of activities and events in the CPM network or the PERT one. So after these milestones are identified, a detailed and in-depth review of implementation is made to reconfirm its relevance to different objectives. Well, strategic surveillance is more generalized than the premise and implementation control, which are more specific by nature. Strategic surveillance aims to monitor a wide range of events both outside and inside the organization. They usually are the ones who threaten the strategy of companies. Such strategy surveillance can be performed by broad-based and general monitoring based on different selection information system sources. The objective is to uncover events that are likely to affect the organization's strategies. So, regarding special alert control, this is based on an immediate reassessment of strategy when an unexpected event hits and stops it. So, this special alert can be implemented by formulating contingency strategies and assigning different responsibilities for unseen, foreseen events. So, these incidents can be unexpected events like pandemic outbreaks, sudden change or fall of government at center or state, industrial disaster, terror attacks, unforeseen natural calamities like earthquake, fire, etc. So now difference between strategic operation control premise. Operational control monitors everyday functions to address any problem at the earliest. On the other hand, strategic control requires large amount of data and an extended time frame. Operational control can be automated or it can also be manual. It usually involves technology, people, and process. Operational controls, when successful, flag potential risks and identify problems between planning and action. They are useful in implementing change so that one can stay on course with the strategy. So when the machine runs into technical problem or when performance is not expected, the operation control process initiates course correction at the earliest. This may include changing or updating IT system, refraining employees who handle the machine or any other solution. Process control usually triggers when a factory produces a particular set of products and drops below expectation or increase in error rate. The steps of strategic control process includes determining what to control, consider the goals of organization. Elements should be related to vision and mission. It may not be an easy task, but you should prioritize what to control because it's impossible to monitor and control everything. Selectively determine what to control. So set standards. One should be something to compare your performance with. Whether in the future, present, or past, managers must compare action against standards. So this can be qualitative or quantitative, but it should help you determine your goal and evaluate the nature of a progress. Measuring performance. Now standards are set. Next step is to measure performance. It's important to measure your performance because it helps you determine your strategy's progress. So this measurement can be done in regular meetings which are carried out in company. Questions like what's happening, the standards, and whether they are being met or to be answered in such meetings. Then compare performance. When compare standards or targets, one should perform at competitive benchmarking. It will help in determining the gaps in actual and targets. So analyzing deviations, if any. There could be multiple deviations in strategy implementation. One must analyze these performance standards and determine the cause if they go below the unexpected standards. This step is essentially focus on understanding what the cause of deviations are. This also analyze internal issues such as shortage of resources. Now taking corrective actions, important to determine if corrective action is needed or not. So once you have determined the reason for performance deviation, decide what to do about it. So determine if the goal should be adjusted or something can be internal which will sort the issue. So it will entirely depend on each deviation's cause, which will help determine if you will take a corrective performance or revise the existing standards or take no action at all. Now strategic control contribution. When strategic control is undertaken correctly, there are three primary areas in which it contributes. It contributes in the measurement of progress, contributes in feedback for future actions, and it acts as linking reward and recognition with performances. Now talking about progress measurement, organizational progress can be measured with the help of strategic control. Measurement is done towards achievement of corporate objectives. Likely outcome is determined wherever a strategy is chosen and implemented. Most likely objectives expected out of strategy and reserved for organizational objectives are determined. Although the strategy is not an end, it is a mean to achieve something more important for its success. Then why measurement of result is essential for strategic implementation? This should be measured when the implementation process is being undertaken and after the implementation is completed. This will ensure that corrective actions, if any, can be taken at the earliest. Then feedback for future actions. Strategic management is a continuous process, as we all know. There is no predetermined end or beginning to it. So strategic control helps recycle different actions. These actions are relevant for achieving the organizational objectives. This can be possible only when strategic control and strategic planning are well integrated. So therefore, controlled activities are usually considered when a strategic plan are set as criteria. Strategic control helps provide inputs for adjusting the same strategic plan and evaluating the future course of action. Then coming to linking rewards and recognition with performance, many organizations follow the first and second step correctly, but it's third step that they fail. They fail to link rewards and recognitions to perform. So this not only helps department wise but also whole country level as well. This linking of rewards to performance is more crucial than anything else for the employees, and it goes a long way in employee retention. So companies have to understand that to get a high market share, they need to have good employees, and having good employees is one thing, but maintaining them is a different thing altogether. A performance-based reward system considers performance of employee rather than any other factors and reduce bias. So strategic control are likely a steering wheel which goes a long way in navigating an organization. It leads the company to achieve its vision and mission and long-term goals. So once a strategy is decided, it's implemented and worked upon, adopting to changes in the internal and external environment. The strategies or objectives of the organization, and they are forward looking. So they are concerned with the follow-up, the strategy, and making necessary adjustments if required. Strategic control ensures smoother transition of organization from the existing stage to achieve its long-term goals. So now, as we already discussed the process in the earlier video, let me just throw some light on the process, that is process of strategic control. A strategic process ensures that the action required to achieve strategic goals are carried out and checks to ensure that these actions are having a required impact on the organization. An effective strategic control process should by implication help an organization ensure that it is setting out to achieve the right thing, and the methods being used to achieve these things are working. So regarding the type and levels of strategic control, organization needs control may be depicted as a 6-step feedback model. One is determining what to control. The first step in the strategic management process is determining the major areas of control. Managers usually base their major controls on organization mission, goals and objectives depending that's which has been developed during the process of planning. Managers must make choices because it's expensive and virtually impossible to control every aspect of the organization. Now talking about setting standards, control standards. It is a target against which subsequent performance will be compared. So standards are the criteria that enable managers to evaluate future, current and past actions. They are measured in varieties of ways, including physical, qualitative and qualitative terms. 5 aspects of performance can be managed and controlled, which is quality, quantity, time, cost and behavior. So standards reflect specific activities or behavior that are necessary to achieve organizational goals. Goals are translated into performance standards by making them measurable. An organizational goal to increase market share, for example, may be translated into a top management performance standard to increase market share by 10% within 12-month period. Helpful managers of strategic performance include sales growth, net profit, return on sales, assets, equity and investment costs of sale, cash flow, market share, product quality, value added and employee productivity. So qualification of objective standard is sometimes difficult. So setting time associated with standard is also a problem for many organizations. It's not usual for short-term objectives to be met at the expense of long-term objectives. Management must develop standards in all performance area touched on by establishing organizational goals. So measuring performance, once standards are determined, next step is to measure the performance. The actual performance must be compared to the standards. Many times the measurement may take for control purpose or based on some form of historical standard. Or it can be based on data derived from PIMS, that is profit impact of market strategy program, published information, that is publicly available rating of product and relative market share standards. So strategic control system are based on the practice of competitive benchmarking, process of measuring firm's performance against that of top performance in its industry. The proliferation of computers tied into network has made it possible for managers to obtain up to minute status report on a variety of quantitative performance measures. So managers should be careful to observe measure inaccurately before taking corrective actions. And regarding comparing step comparing the step determines degree of variation between actual performance and standards. If the first two phases have been done well, for third phase of control process, comparing performance via standards should be straightforward. However, sometimes it's difficult to make the required comparison. Some deviations from the standard may be justified because of change in environmental conditions or other reasons. So determining the reasons for deviations is another step involved finding out why performance has derived from the standard. Causes of derivation can range from selected achieve organizational objectives. Particularly, the organization needs to ask if the deviations are due to internal shortcomings or external change beyond the control of the organization. So general checklist can be whether the standards appropriate for standard stated objectives or strategies, or the objectives and corresponding still appropriate in light of current environment situation, or the activities being executed properly or appropriately for achieving standards. So, and firms organization structure system and resource support adequate for successfully implementing strategies and therefore achieving the objectives, and are the strategies for achieving objectives still appropriate in light of current environment situation. So these are some of the questions one should be checklist to be looked into to determine the reasons for deviations. Then taking corrective actions. The final step in management process is determining need for corrective action. Managers can choose among three courses of action. One is that they should keep quiet, another one is they can correct the actual performance, and third one being they can revise the standard. So when the standards are not met, managers must carefully assess the reason why and take corrective action. Moreover, need to achieve standards periodically to ensure that the standards and associated performance measures are still relevant for the future. So final stage of control process occurs when managers must decide action to take to correct performance when deviation occur. Corrective actions depend on the discovery of deviation and ability to take necessary action. Often the real cause of deviation must be found before corrective action can be taken. So causes of deviation can range from unrealistic objectives to the wrong strategy being selected, achieve organizational objectives, and each cause requires a different corrective actions. So not all deviations from external environment, threats or opportunities have progressed to the point a particular outcome is likely. Corrective action may be necessary. So to conclude, strategic control is an integral part of strategy. Without properly placed controls, the strategy of companies bound to fail. Without properly placed controls, strategy of companies bound to fail. So strategic control is a tool by which companies check their internal process and environment and ascertain the progress towards the goal. Well, I hope all the concepts that discussed is clear, and let me just finally brief you on this strategy control. Regarding operational control system includes control over how normal business processes are executed, but does not include control over strategic business targets or high level business priorities. Now talking about the comparison between strategic control and operational control, I think we discussed enough. And regarding exerting strategic control, requires performance be measured compared with previously established standards and followed by corrective actions. Corrective action should be taken at all levels if actual performance is less than the standard and that's been established unless extraordinary causes of discrepancy can be identified, such as halt in production when the fire shuts down a critical supplier. So it's most desirable for strategic managers to consider and anticipate possible corrective actions before a strategy is implemented wherever possible. So well, this is the last video, 20th video on strategic management, and I covered all the concepts which have been prescribed under VTU for strategic management. I hope it's clear. As I said, covered all the topics under strategic management. And um, it's time to say goodbye, and I'll be coming up with many more videos on the different subjects again. Well, thank you so much for listening and keep watching.